funky. Hip
All right, everyone, welcome back to It's a Wrap here on WJBC The Roar. It's been a while, but we felt like it was very, very important for us to get back in the saddle because there was a giant, I don't know if you've heard, but there was this huge kind of cultural milestone in the world of Christian music recently. But we'll get to that in just a half a sec. What have y'all been listening to? How's been the interim?
Jesus is King.
That's been the whole interim for you, Nathan?
That is,
Not Chance? I'm not going to talk about Chance?
Well, I mean, Big Day was good, but it wasn't Coloring Book, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm still trying to get my mind around how to think about the evolution of an artist and how you're always saying it's not that. It's kind of similar to people saying, oh, the movie's nothing like the book. Right, this album's nothing like his old album, but is that like the right grading scale, the right grading criteria? I don't know, but I did not enjoy it as much as Coloring Book. I didn't think it was as tight of an album. I mean, he seemed to have sprawled there for a little bit, but I did enjoy it. A couple of the songs were really fun. A couple of really good lyrics. I liked his where he said, where it's basically like, I won't have you, whoever's at my wedding has to be there for my marriage or something like that. That was interesting, which is the whole album revolves around that theme.
I thought it was a concept album around Chance being like this sort of stable family man kind of thing, and it seemed like a love letter in a lot of ways. So definitely seemed like a clear step in the evolution of the artist. I've been listening to MF Doom quite a bit, heavy rotation. He hasn't come out with anything new, but I've been rocking that. And in anticipating this album of Kanye's, I've listened back through my favorite Kanye stuff. So going back to College Dropout in 2004 and reacquainting myself with that. So that's been kind of on the Gleason playlist lately.
Nice. Well, I listened to The Big Day, and I literally haven't finished it.
It's very long.
It's a long one, yeah.
I get to about the 6th track, and I have to stop. I hate listening to it so much.
No.
In all honesty, I hate the sound and the lyrics, and his Hot Shower is the best song on that album, and that's terrible because it's the worst song on that album. I have to remove that album. I have to remove Hot Shower contextually from the rest of the album in my mind, and then it's really funny. But if it's still in the album, it's just, I don't know. We'd have to take a whole episode to talk about that, but we can't because we have things to discuss. And my rotation has been Jesus is King. I was talking to Emily Brown, and she just said, according to Spotify, you haven't stopped listening to Jesus is King since the day it came out.
Can people see your Spotify?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mine?
Not you have to like
be able to.
yeah.
Did I block you on Spotify, Nathan?
You have to like.
I think you just turned private.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to make it public in the settings, and I did that because I love getting comments like that. And she wasn't wrong. Every single time I turned on Spotify, if I wasn't listening to a podcast, it was just the constant rotation again and again, which is helpful because it means I've listened to this album more times than I have any other album that we've reviewed. So
it actually says you're listening to it right now.
They're not wrong. My Spotify is still open. It's just not playing.
Jesus
it's just still.
Yeah, you're right. It's not playing, but it was the last thing you listened to, which is interesting. Just to kind of maybe start thinking about the album is how many people on my Spotify feed have listened to it. Yeah. People who are country purists, people who don't even use Spotify for music, but for podcasts are still rocking Jesus is King. It's just hitting a wide demographic, it seems.
Yeah, I've got like friends that don't listen to music, period, who want to talk about this album. Yeah. So it's been, I think, really broadly listened to, but I also don't think it's going to have the staying power. I think it's an event, but I don't think for those people that don't typically listen to hip hop or this genre, I have a hard time thinking that the album is going to stick around past Thanksgiving for them. That's just a prediction, but
that makes sense. The only other thing I've listened to is Clipping released another album. y'all's favorite.
Yeah,
And what's even better about this one is it's
Industrial noise.
the least inviting one so far.
Oh, great.
I made y'all
Can't
listen.
wait to that
I made
one.
y'all listen to what I thought was their harshest one, and I thought they were going to get more inviting as time went because their second album was a lot less harsh. It was more melodic. It had a story behind it. This one was their horrorcore album. It was their take on horror. It was an 80s horror movie themed Halloween album, and there is a rare time where albums make me like cringe, not in like awkward or they're silly, but like it's tough to hear some lyrics. There's a horror movie album.
That is a lot.
I will definitely not listen to
Yeah,
it.
I know.
will-
I'm gonna
I will
straight up,
block you.
straight up. I do not recommend it for the faint of heart. I don't listen to it very often anymore, but I don't think it's bad. I think it's very good. I just don't think I can take it consistently.
You know,
but
maybe my music taste is evolving, but I had finished Jesus is King, and obviously there's the function on Spotify that hits you to do shuffle randomly of the similar sort. And I was listening to this song, and I couldn't really recognize it, but I was like, man, this is really good. And I looked at my phone, and it was Brockhampton. And I was like, what is
their new
wrong
album?
with me?
Was
I'm
it-
having a bad day.
Was it their new album?
That's great.
Yeah, I think so.
their new album is very different from their old stuff. Whole lot more mellow, much less. It's less weird.
There it is.
It's far
Less
more
weird, more mellow. That's me.
far more songwriting, much less rap. That's a nice album. It's a pleasant album. Got a lot of themes about God and the search for faith. That I would recommend that album.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, and talking about albums from people about faith that we didn't really think would happen. Let's talk about our good friend Kanye Jeezy West.
We thought it would happen because it's been happening from the beginning if you'd followed his career.
I mean, yeah.
So
he's been.
we're going to do history. We're going to do Kanye history lesson right,
All right.
here.
Okay, throw
This
the history
is a
down.
revision. This is the second draft of College Dropout. Seriously. Like, if you look at College Dropout, I mean, I'll Fly Away is one of the tracks on that album, and it's a straight gospel song recorded by a big church choir with no rapping on it. Kanye is not doing something new here, people. His new thing is marketing. His new thing is appealing to a different audience. If you distill the elements in College Dropout that show up on Jesus is King, you basically have the whole album, except for the some of the more ambient and trappy sounding things on Jesus is King. So that's where I'm coming to begin with.
Interesting. I have a
Nothing new under the sun, Kanye.
You were really
Nothing new under the Kanye sun.
He was
You
waiting
have this
for that
whole
one.
pent-up body language, like, I have this to say.
I'm coming from a similar vantage point because I am a Kanye fan. He's one of my three, and
Kanye, Cudi, and
Chance.
Kanye. I felt like that was going to happen.
that guy too.
Talib, okay.
Man, I was listening to, on a side note, I was listening to Radio Silence again. That is such a good album.
It really
I
is.
went from Jesus is King to that, and I was like, that's what hip hop is. Okay,
Well,
cool.
and on College Dropout, you have Kanye and Common and Jay-Z, and you have kind of like all of these features that kind of put him into a particular era and sound, but you also have him doing tons of the gospel stuff. I mean, Jesus Walks is the best song on...
It could be one of the best Kanye songs.
it could be the best song on the new album if he would have released it on this new album.
I wouldn't mind that being like a remix of that being
Yeah.
a bonus track, honestly.
Well, and I think he's involving it in like his tours and stuff that he's doing right now.
It'd be one of the most well-developed songs on
Yeah.
the album, too. It would have felt like it was finished.
Yeah.
But we'll get to nitpicky critiques in a bit, but let's keep going with thesis statements. Were you saying something?
Yes, I think it's similar. I've been following Kanye for a while. There's obviously been a faith motif, a faith theme that's been kind of trailing with him. But I would argue that there seems to be, just based on lyrical content and based on style, there's an old Kanye and there's a new Kanye. There is a significant difference. Whereas old Kanye, there was this theological, religious ambiguity. Now there seems to be more coherence. There seems to be more, honestly, understanding of the Bible. Because if you listen to old Kanye, he's describing faith. He wants faith. He wants God's revelation. But it results in these lyrics that are just theologically questionable. But whereas with Jesus is King, there seems to be actually what could be argued to be biblically true statements of faith. So there does seem to be, and then there's obviously the note of this is a non-explicit album, which is a major transition. I mean,
that's a huge, that's totally different from College Dropout.
Right, massively. And you think about that, but then you think about just from the music standpoint, it's funny because the difference is it's not as good. It's not as developed. It's not as it's not as many layers to it. But it's so funny with that Spotify function of where it does shuffle for you. It would shuffle old stuff, and I'd be like, "Whoa, this is really good." And then I'd look, and it'd be old. It'd be from College Dropout. It'd be from Late Registration or one of his other albums. But it's just more developed. It's more robust. It's lyrically explicit. There seems to be a difference.
Yeah.
I think the difference is also a part of like what his persona is right now too, where he wasn't trying to convey this persona of like a clean living convert in 2004, 2005, which is what he is doing now. So that's very different. But he does say in the song On God, but I survived, that's on God. I've been telling y'all since '05. Yeah. And so I think he's even aware of, kind of how this album is interacting with some of that older stuff. I would kind of push back on the idea that this is an album that attempts to have theological or any other type of coherence. When he's making statements, usually that are theological, he's directly quoting scripture, which I think is really cool. But then the statements that are like Kanye statements, there's a lot of things that are intentionally mystifying. And I think Kanye's part of his genius in marketing is saying and doing things that get a lot of hot takes, but that are kind of impenetrable. And I see him doing that quite a bit in this album. In Follow God, for example, he says, wrestling with God, I don't really want to wrestle. And the whole song about like, or the whole thing of the refrain of being Christ-like in that song doesn't lead you to a position at all, but it leads you to kind of like this enigma. So that's kind of how I see that. I also think his political positions and statements are intentionally mystifying. So we can come to that later. I've been talking for a while. I'll pass the mic.
It's all good. Well, there are three of them.
Yeah.
I wish I had the context of Kanye context, the Kanye text. That probably would have informed a lot of how I felt about this, because I could tell while listening to it, spoiler alert for my opinion in the end, I really enjoyed this album. I enjoyed this album a lot, but I felt like there's a possibility that if I had further Kanye context, that I would have felt less so, because whereas to this sounds fantastic. Aesthetically, musically, it sounds great. It could be old news, depending on what Kanye's sound has been on Yeezus and Life of Pablo, specifically, like more recently those two, or on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. All albums I haven't listened to. I've not been a Kanye person. I listened to Power when I was a kid and listened to Monster when I was a bit older, and I never finished listening to Runway because I'm not going to watch a 15-minute long music video. And I enjoyed like All of the Lights. Kanye's singles are fantastic. I just never listened to his albums because it was only till very recently that I started listening to full albums. And now this album has inspired me to go back and listen to more Kanye. Don't know if that had changed my opinion, but you're right. Theologically, I don't see many problems with the theology and the lyrics, because his theology is not a personally derived one. It's a very directly, it's what the Bible said, and thus it is true sort of theology, in the sense that this is the Bible verse. I will quote it. I will give you the name and number where you will find it, and along that line. Though there is some, not theological, but I think personal egotistic remarks that he makes that are downright silly. Specifically on I think it's in On God possibly, where he is talking about how that's why I charge the prices that I charge.
The IRS want they 50 plus our tithe. Man, that's over half of the pie. I felt dry. That's on God. That's why I charge the prices that I charge. I can't be out here dancing with the stars. No, I cannot let my family starve. I go hard. That's on God.
Okay.
I felt like that was truth Kanye versus a lot of other Kanye that's sort of like this other voice that he's almost doing a quasi-ventriloquism act.
That sounds like Kanye sitting at the dinner table with the bills in front of him. But at the same time, if they're charging 50 plus and that's half of your pie, that means you have 50 left. And I'm, a broke college kid. I would give anything if I could have $100 million and the IRS take 50 of it away. I'd still be happy. Your family's not going to starve. I just couldn't.
Well, and
I couldn't
also,
listen to the phrase, that's why I charge the prices that I charge, and look at $150 piece of Jesus is King merch that has some circles I can make in MS Paint. That was
well, and then he also says plus our tithe. So he's complaining about tithing and the IRS, and then like not wanting to do Dancing with the Stars because he needs to make money. That's where Kanye's celebrity presence shines through the cracks a little bit, and it's like, oh no, we're not the same at all. Like your experience with faith is super cool and relatable, but you as a person, you exist in this celebrity stratosphere that's very unrelatable. And that's where I thought this was actually one of the best, most honest lyrics. But it also shows kind of the puzzling nature of a lot of what he's saying. Yeah. And I don't think an artist should be theologically accurate or correct. I don't think that's not a criteria for me in making something that is artistic. Art is not polemic, logical, or theologically tidy.
I think if you're going to be Kanye, though, if you're going to have the stage that you have, and if you're going to be one of the first artists who's this large in this generation to make such a drastic change in your public persona, I think you almost have a social responsibility to make sure that you aren't going to bastardize or misconstrue an element of the gospel or theology in a way that people will end up finding misleading. Because I especially with rap is about truth and rap is about honesty. Rap isn't abstract. In most situations, rap is not abstract. It's very literal poetry in many cases. Not the most literal. It carries with it the same literary, artistic flares that it can have. But if Kanye were to say something along the lines of, I have money because God loves me and I'm here because of this, I would feel like that in the strictest possible case, every blessing comes from God, so correct, but it comes dangerously close to a prosperity gospel. He didn't say that, but
when you hang out a lot with Joel Osteen, people get the idea.
Yeah. He made a good choice by stepping away from this being a preachy album. I was seeing someone make the remark that this album isn't attempting to preach at anyone. No. Someone made a remark like, you really like an album that's so preachy? And this guy responded and said, it's not preachy. It's a very personal album. He talks explicitly of his faith. There's a couple songs or in a couple lyrics where he is very much saying like, this is the way things should be, or this is how something should be, or this is the way that someone should live. But for the most part, it's a very personal, exultant experience where he is singing praise of something that he has found in his faith. There's Closed on Sunday, which is probably like Proverbs as a song. We're going to put the Chick-fil-A line to the side right now.
I can't.
We will get back. It's very important to discuss, but other than that, in the song, it's like his take on a book of wisdom. His lines about don't if you have daughters, keep them safe. Don't stray towards the vipers. Don't let them indoctrinate. It's his list of wisdom coming from his place on top of the pile, essentially, which I appreciate. Now, the Chick-fil-A line, I still don't know why it exists.
It's terrible.
I think it's funny, but I completely respect if other people say it's the worst.
It's kind of funny, but it's it's just too cheesy. It's
That's the one
too trying to reap a Christian symbol.
that's what it felt like. It feels way too much like he's trying to sell this to evangelicals who like Chick-fil-A a bit too much.
Well, he says no more living for the culture, but he's replacing one culture with another. It's Chick-fil-A culture.
Oof.
Yeah.
So I'm
Oof.
like,
Coming in.
no,
with
you're
a
making
heavy
the
hook.
culture, and this now you're sort of like in league with this different demographic, and so like musically, Closed on Sundays doesn't work for me on any level. It's not my taste. Lyrically, it doesn't work on any level because it is. I find it just trite, and it's the song that I've heard a lot of non-music fans talk about and imagine
Because it's the most meme-worthy moment.
because it's meme-worthy and
Yeah.
because it's like it's a throwaway line and they see it as the totality of the whole album, which is this is kind of a joke. I mean, I don't see
It's-
anyone taking this song seriously.
I see this as like if they were going to pick one song to call the rest of the album bad by, then it's unfortunately so ready to be
Yeah.
that song. I love the instrumental. I find the instrumental, its production and its delivery to be really fantastic. The problem is that lyrically it doesn't stand up to that same level of production. This spacious, hollowed out, almost epic feeling production that carries a gravity and a weight behind it. His lyrics don't have as much of a concept. The concept behind them is not strong enough to carry the instrumental itself, especially when you end the song by screaming Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, it's probably the one song that he could have written really, really high on the album, because I know he was into like doing it drug free. This is the album where it's like, you
This
got
is almost
stoned and
this
wrote
is like
it.
a Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds
Yeah,
track.
except for, well, we're not going to do the Beatles, but
Yeah.
okay, Nathan, what do you think on that one though?
On that song,
Yeah,
I could not handle the Chick-fil-A line just to start out with. I mean, the first time I was listening to it, I was driving home from work, and I was just trying to listen to it close, and I was like, this is a joke. There's no way that's your line. Closed on Sunday, you my Chick-fil-A. Like, that's just a bad pickup
number
line.
one with Lemonade too. It's like,
Okay, but if you
that
have
imagery is
if you've
so
had
bad.
the number one with Lemonade, if he's gonna go with Chick-fil-A, then
The number one is
the
good.
number one and with their Lemonade.
More of a
okay,
number two guy
yeah.
myself. But
It's the whole metaphor is bad, but it's a consistent metaphor.
yeah.
until you throw, they will think twice stepping onto my land. I draw the line, it's written in the sand. So now it's like, the stand your ground laws, and then Jezebel don't stand a chance. It's like,
You could argue
This
that
is-
he's making references to stories of Jesus, him riding in the dirt while they were about to
Okay,
stone that woman.
okay.
But that
I can see
steps
that,
into
but step
another
into my
problem.
land.
Step
Yeah,
into-
that's I'm going to be aggressive if you come
Yeah,
at me.
yeah.
Which
That lyric
isn't
sounds
too
like
Chick-fil-A-y,
that
but I
lyric
like you.
sounds like it fits the instrumental to me. It has that kind of aggressive, like
It's a little harder.
like drawing lines in the sand kind of
Yeah.
a preparedness feeling to it. But you're still right. That Chick-fil-A line does not fit the rest of it. But I can forgive it because I don't listen to words. I'm illiterate.
Right,
But
yeah, that's all right.
speaking specifically
You did
about
pass my class.
barely, it was barely.
Skin of the teeth.
I still look at my grades and keep being like, man, I want to go back and apologize to all of my professors.
It's all right.
But speaking about the possibility that in that song he's making a comparison to stories of Jesus, Selah. Selah is the second song of the album. It's
yeah.
one of my personal favorites.
I did like that one a lot too.
Its Hallelujah chorus is
Yeah.
massive and beautiful. The
Yeah.
hits of the drums make it feel epic and gargantuan in a feeling. But towards the end of the song, well, even in the beginning of the song, there's some problems. But toward the ends of the song, he starts talking about and comparing his feelings of betrayal to the betrayal of Jesus. And I have seen
a lot.
an explicitly atheist music critic talk about how that is probably going to be too much for Christians. And personally, I don't have a visceral feeling of offense at it, but I do intellectually know you should give a comparison of something you personally feel about yourself and your situation to something that is so theologically significant and important as the literal betrayal of Jesus. You should give that a wider berth. Honestly, you should step away from a comparison that is so specific in that sense. It feels, I don't think it's blasphemous, but I do think it would have been a smarter decision if he either made a lighter reference to it, or made it sound less like he is directly comparing himself to Jesus. Because when someone else may do it, it sounds like an interesting comparison. When Kanye does it, carrying with that the history of Kanye's egregious pride, like an obviously, I would call it a sinful level of pride, having that much pride in your work and constantly saying, literally on camera, I am a god.
It's a lot.
Carrying with that his history and then comparing himself to Jesus, even after this transformation, I would have appreciated more if he made a repent on that pride at some point.
Yeah, I think it is interesting how he uses the Bible. I mean, I would argue in a lot of ways it's surprising because how he uses a lot of verses in context. Like, that's always surprising when I see celebrities or anybody in power use something correctly. But then there are things like this with the Judas parallel, or another example is, or ironic examples is his, what I might even call the diss track of Hands On.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Ooh.
where he goes on and he goes after Christians. What have you been hearing from the Christians? They're the first ones to judge me. So he's adding Christians while being this transform. I thought that was a bit ironic. I can kind of understand where he's coming from.
It's very self-pitying, which is in Kanye's wheelhouse. But to take it all the way back to College Dropout, this lyric is taken from Jesus Walks, pretty much a paraphrase, because he said, you can't rap about Jesus and get played in the clubs, and then Christians won't like me either because I'm profane. So this, like, nobody understands me. I'm a genius. I'm going to cry. You know, it's like the Childish Gambino video of the the Summer Feeling video.
Yeah.
Where Kanye's just sitting there, like, crying, wearing the MAGA hat, and Michelle is like patting him on the back.
Oh no.
That's basically what I see Kanye doing in the moment that you're talking about, Nathan.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can get that, but I think Hands On is my absolute favorite song in the
Oh
album.
no.
Hands On.
Oh, it's so self-pitying.
It is self-pitying, but I felt honestly convicted while I was listening to it, because oddly enough, his self-pitying worked on me because
You're so sweet.
It wasn't
You're so sweet, Cooper.
It wasn't as self-pitying. It was that when he said, "What have the Christians? What have you heard from the Christians? They'll be the first ones to judge me," and I felt bad because when I heard that this was happening, my first thing is like, it's a publicity stunt. He does not care about Jesus. There is nothing true in this. But then I saw another person retweeted something from a pastor who said, like, you can be cynical about this. You can be distrusting, or you can be hopeful and trust in the transformative power of Jesus. Like, if this is true, it's one of the best things to happen to Christianity in culture in a while. One of the biggest artists in the world came out with an explicitly Christian lyrical album. And when's the last time we've gotten, honestly, I don't want to say an endorsement, but something this with this much potential.
With what
I can tell you, when Bob Dylan did the exact same thing, and we all forgot about his Christian album. So that's like
Bob
a
Dylan
generation.
has a Christian album?
Yeah,
that's the point.
But that's the thing. Each generation is going to have something like this. I have no idea that exists because I'm not from the generation that remembers anything about Bob Dylan.
Right.
Who is that? I'm just kidding.
It's the same people who are like, man, Kanye really put that Peter... Not that Paul McCartney guy on with that song.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I feel like that same...
Yeah, so, I mean, Bob Dylan did the same thing. The album is called, I think, Peace Train, and it's, like, super, super evangelical as well, and it's pretty much considered his worst album.
Yeah.
But is that because it's his worst album?
Yeah. It's bad.
Okay.
It's rank.
I'll have to trust you on that.
To make the comparison, though, with Kanye, I don't think this is Kanye's worst album at all. I think it's his best album since Beautiful, Twisted, Dark Fantasy. I really like
That's what that album's called.
A lot better than Pablo and Jesus and
What was that one that he did that EP that was terrible?
Yay.
Yandi
Yay.
or Yay.
Oh.
I don't.
so-
I
Talk about
haven't
self-pitying
listened.
there.
I haven't listened to all of Yay. I can't comment, but I listened to the first song and I liked.
I thought this was a
song.
great career self-correct. So I think that's kind of interesting.
I think from just a cultural standpoint, to kind of go back to what Cooper said, how, this really is somebody who, not judging the heart necessarily, but is somebody who is explicitly claiming Christ in a somewhat, as long as you don't look too closely into some of his references, in somewhat of a theologically correct way. I mean, even the title, Jesus is King.
At the very least, it's consistent theologically.
Yeah.
He doesn't make a sudden cultish or heretical dive in any of the lyrics.
Yeah, not from what I can tell. I mean,
At least, yeah, not from what I can see so far.
Yeah, I think in my mind, I'm separating the album as a work of art from Kanye as a human being. And Kanye
Same,
as a human
same.
being, I'm like, my man, this is awesome. Like, if this is for real, I'm so happy.
yeah.
As an album, to separate it as a work of art, I feel like it has a lot of shortcomings.
Yeah.
From just an artistic standpoint. I also am a little wary of the idea that this is the best thing for Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
We love celebrities across all cultures and subcultures, and seeing Kanye as a representative or a voice for a Christian subculture, I think is it's a lot of pressure on an individual who doesn't do well under pressure, and it's sort of like a celebrity preacher. I don't really think we need more celebrity preachers, but the realest point for me when it comes to that stuff comes when
If y'all have ever
in
wondered
the song-
what that paper flipping sound is, it's
Old school.
because every single time good old DG walks in here with a pile full of just a dead tree. With his notes.
I kill him. The song "God Is," when he says,
That's one of my favorites.
I know
God
Christ
is.
is the fountain that filled my cup. I know God is alive. Yeah, he is opening up my vision, giving me a revelation. This ain't about a dead religion. Jesus brought a revolution. All the captives are forgiven. Time to break down all the prisons. And then there's this freedom from addiction. I thought that was the most moving moment, maybe in the whole album, because it's not saying, I want Christianity. It's saying, I want Christ, and here's what he's done for me, which is totally different than being a cultural representative of a subculture, basically. So that's where I kind of see that.
Yeah, it is interesting because there's so many different vantage points to look at this album, right? You can look at it entirely as just an album, which I think you could probably tear apart in a lot of ways. You could look at it as, Kanye becoming a convert and what the implications of that are. There's so much going on. I mean, this whole idea of a celebrity being converted is nothing new. We've been seeing it since Acts, probably even earlier. And people constantly make, because I play a little bit of a devil's advocate sometimes in this conversation, but they're always like, Paul, dude, like, mic drop, over, conversation done.
I'm a little cynical when it comes to that.
And I'm always like,
certain
okay, all right,
argument.
tell me what happened with Paul. And then they go, well, he was converted from persecuting the church. And then I was like, and then what happened? And they're like, what do you mean? And I say, he waited 14 years to do anything. He was 3 years alone in Arabia, and then he spent another however many years studying under people. He didn't go straight to, well, I'm a Christian. I'm ready to have my Sunday service. So talking from a Christian standpoint, I think what I want to see from Kanye, I want to see from the person of Kanye is not just this conversion and this faith explanation, but something of repentance. What would it look like for Kanye to repent? Like Cooper said about his pride,
Ego.
A Christmas album.
all these other things. Yes.
Christmas album.
If he does a Christmas album, that's fruit. That's fruits of the Spirit.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, putting a date on a conversion is a funny thing to do too, because I mean, he in this album is saying, I've been a Christian since 2005. He explicitly says that.
Yeah.
He says in his liner notes for College Dropout, all thanks to God, he's done miracles in my life. God is my executive producer. So
He says that?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's in the liner notes.
How much does God know about compressors and like Adobe Audition? I'm wondering how much
Probably a lot.
explicit technical knowledge.
I think he's got
like
it
if,
like an
like if God
omniscient level.
sat down across from and like an engineering
Man.
board to be like, man, gosh, who mixed this? Looks like it was the Lord himself.
Yeah. So, but that's
If that was the case, the mix on this album, it makes very little sense,
Yeah.
honestly.
That's oof.
so. But Nathan, that's your 14 years. Because in 2004.
Oh, that's
to
fair.
2019,
Maybe he's
so I
been
don't
waiting.
Oh,
know.
look at that.
Look at that.
Turned on you.
Yeah,
Man, he really knows
sorry,
that.
I know.
Okay, he was
that's
way exactly.
that's
Yeah,
just- I set that trap.
I had to
That's
count that out in
hysterical.
my head. And,
Okay, well, we've got like a little bit more time, but I really wanted to hit the political side. Can we do that?
sure.
Are we allowed
Shoot,
to?
No, go. I
Okay.
don't know. No one.
'Cause I know we got other stuff
listens
to do.
to. I'll cut it out if it's somehow terrible.
Okay. Okay, so he mentions the 13th Amendment twice.
Yeah.
Okay, but then he also mentions prison several other times. And in the public contexts in which he's engaged the 13th Amendment, he has done so in the White House with Donald Trump wearing a MAGA hat, and then on a plane wearing a MAGA hat as well. And his allusions to the 13th Amendment are very impenetrable. It's very difficult to understand what he's saying
Yeah.
because he's incoherent in person when he's making these statements. So on the album on the song On God, which I think is the best song on the album by far, it's upbeat. It's got that old school sampling and cutting sound.
It reminded me of All of the Lights.
Yeah. I thought it was really great producing. He says, and all my brothers locked up on the yard. You can still be anything you want to be. Went from 1 and 4 to 1 and 3. 13th Amendment. Gotta end it. That one's on me. He the new commander in chief. So I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Like, is he making a statement of some kind here? Or is he trying to confuse an audience with what he's saying as far as like a social and political activism? Because his connection with Trump has been very close in the last several years. So what did y'all see going on with that?
I am just as confused. I am just bewildered because I have no idea what he's getting at. Genuinely, I don't have any thoughts.
Yeah,
I can't understand him.
Nathan?
I don't want to touch the.
You don't want to touch it?
No, I honestly don't really understand either.
Okay.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It seems to be. I mean, his association with Trump's might be just a similar move for association, demographic, marketing type of deal.
If that's true, that'd be very disappointing because that really lays out exactly what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he says 13th Amendment, gotta end it, that's kind of what he said in his tweet as well, that the 13th Amendment abolishes slavery.
Well, the 13th...
But then there's the clause underneath the 13th Amendment that says...
Unless you're in prison.
And which basically allows for modern day indentured servitude. So is he talking about like this prison reform thing? Is he talking about the clause?
I think if I'm... The first time I heard the 13th Amendment, the first thing I thought about was the Netflix documentary, The 13th, which, disclaimer, I haven't seen. But if he's talking about ending the 13th Amendment, it would make far less sense if he was talking about, we need to make slavery legal again.
Right, that's incoherent.
So I think it pretty obviously means, Kanye is it's really common for rappers to talk about, free my whatever.
Yeah.
Free my friend, free my brother, free my blah, blah, blah. It would make a lot more sense for the statement to be more related to free or end the 13th Amendment for the sake of ending this impromptu indentured servitude. Which he feels that people he knows or people in his culture have found themselves a part of.
Yeah. So then he says later on, 13th Amendment, 3 strikes, made a left when I should have made a right. And I was like, so right as in right behavior?
There is
right
no
as
right
in
answer to that.
Conservatism? Because every time...
It's an allusion to Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, so...
No correct answer.
That's like... Those moments to me are artistically troubling because they also seem to be connecting him to like acting as if he's connecting himself to all of these different things that don't form any type of coherent position. And in that way, perhaps what Kanye is doing here isn't a whole lot different than anything else. People think that this is an intelligible album because it has some very explicit titles and Bible verses, but is he just able to find the right ingredients to create reactions across a wide range of spectrums?
You're so cynical. It's awesome.
Was that cynical?
Yeah, no, this is.
It's like this masterful conspiracy. I mean, I can kind of see it with our.
I'm just talking about
cultural
as an
celebs.
artist, though. Yeah.
Yeah, like I can totally understand. I am positive there are plenty of. There is some Christian band a couple years ago who came out saying that like they admitted they're atheists. They were a Christian band because it made them money.
Yeah.
Like it's happened
Yeah.
before.
Which
But-
I understand.
But I
That's
I
a
see
reality.
more value in maintaining a faith in this
Yeah.
than I see otherwise, because it's like Pascal's wager. If this is
Yeah.
true and this is honest, then it's fantastic. We have a new convert.
Right.
That's wonderful. With someone who's still artistically ingenious, is still capable of making incredible music.
Yeah.
But, if it isn't true,
And I guess
okay, he's back to being what
yeah.
Kanye has always been. He's done this to plenty other cultures. No one's burned to the ground.
and for me, it's where he is. I pray good things for him, obviously, but where he is artistically, I do think there are 4 songs in this album that I think are really good.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think it falls off.
What are your 4 songs?
Well, I like the first 3.
Okay.
Every hour is Selah and Follow God.
Yeah. Follow God, I just thought was awesome.
Follow God is very
Yeah.
I
good.
think Follow God too is just consistent because it's describing his
Yeah.
difficulties in following God.
It's the most rapped song on
Oh,
the
yeah.
thing, and
So
it's,
it's got
and
those
it's a
long
good
beats.
version. It's got a
It appeals
less-
to the old heads.
Yeah.
It's got that lo-fi production and
Yeah.
like a cold delivery behind all of it. It feels if you just want to show someone a rap song from this album, it's the
Yeah.
only one you could show.
Right. And then the album comes to a grinding halt with Closed on Sunday. The album is closed for me at that point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cooper.
Did you write that down?
No, I just said it.
Okay, cool.
But then
Glad that was freestyle. If you wrote it down, we'd have to kick you out of the cipher.
No, but then On God I thought was really nice as well, and I actually didn't like it at all the first time I heard it. But it won me over, and I think this album also has the potential to continue winning me over.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I've listened to it, 10 or 12 times, and every time I'm like, okay, I like a little bit more of some of these songs, but
Yeah.
outside of those 4, I didn't really enjoy the songs as songs. I did think that having Kenny G on the track
Yeah.
was whack.
Yeah.
No, it was not. No, it was.
Here comes
I
Cooper.
too
Here comes
thought it
Cooper.
would be whack, but that is one of the best sounding sax solos in a song I've ever heard. It follows the melody beautifully. It dips up there at the end in a way that, like, I feel
I was just confused.
It could be a joke. I saw it and I was wondering
No.
why in the world would Kenny G be on this thing. But we have to remember Kenny G is very, very good at playing the saxophone.
So it basically, that was what took me to DC Talk New Thing. I was like, this is the same level of whackness
I understand
that I
it
heard
more.
in New Thing.
Yeah.
So, but
Speaking of New Thing, I listened to the first 3 songs and I couldn't anymore because I had to stop at the song I Love Rap, because it started off with being like, I hear all these people talking about rap music and I gotta say, I love rap. And then it dips into this like
Right.
Sunday school level production and instrumental. Blink, ding, 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 ding. Okay, no.
My 3 songs were Follow God, just obviously, as we've already said.
Yeah.
God Is. I really love the first half, and then it kind of crumbles in my mind. where it's
Which
just
first half? Are you saying like the first half with the female vocalist, or when Kanye starts singing?
halfway, and then Kanye starts kind of like going, got like a little higher.
When he hits his higher
and then
register?
it's like, okay, and then it kind of just, I don't know.
the lyrics
tumbles
there are
off.
also really terrible. Their New Thing level, well, no, here's what he does. It's all end rhyme, which
I
Cooper,
can't-
you've criticized a lot.
I can't.
King of
It's
Kings,
a worship
Lord of
song.
Lords.
When's the last time you heard a worship
all
song that wasn't
the
entirely
things
end
he
rhymes?
has in store, door, name, saying.
Yeah.
So I just felt like the writing there was Right. And most worship songs are not good.
Yeah.
When they're end rhymed like this.
I'm glad
I mean,
someone said
that
it.
was consistent
Yeah.
throughout the whole album. His bad rhyming, I was so disappointed. It sounds good because he's Kanye.
Yeah.
But his end rhyme, I mean, Selah, he had Monday, Sunday was his rhyme. Follow God, life like, and then he goes on. Life like was his rhyme. You just repeated it. And then he goes, right, type right, right. Those are his rhymes. Come on, man.
The lyricism.
Kanye has done this. This is a Kanye isn't the lyricist of a generation. Kanye is Kanye's value has been derived from he is really good in a number of places. He's not the greatest in one of them. His least proficient is obviously his lyricism, but his delivery, his production, and his
his
ability,
delivery is
Yeah.
amazing.
and his ability to
Unbelievable.
bring in artists that increase the value of
Yeah.
his songs, that's what's great. Bringing in clips on Use This Gospel
Yeah.
was a great choice
Yeah.
because they carried that song. Beyond his, like, I loved the hook on Use This Gospel, but having Push and No Mercy on
Yeah.
that were great. I have to mention the mixing on the album as a whole. When I first heard it, I thought it was terrible, and by a modern standard, it's bad. If you listen to it on hi-fi ear headphones and like take time, it's a very, very crunchy mix. It has a lot of lo-fi tendencies, but I think if you remember to take a look at the album cover, which is a giant vinyl LP that looks like it comes from a gospel album, and recontextualize the mix as being reminiscent of old 1960s gospel record pressings that had poor mixes on them,
Yeah.
then it makes
That's
more
cool.
sense.
Yeah, that's a good
Except
point.
there's one very distracting moment where you can hear very, very loudly the room reverb during one of Push's lines, where he says, "I'm glad that you made it." You can hear it like it's being said in the middle of a bathroom, like you can hear his voice bouncing off the walls from it, and I can't forgive that part. It's just,
That's what you bring, Cooper. That's what you bring.
It's
That
too lo-fi.
Production.
yeah, no.
Granular
I did not
detail.
catch that.
We only have like a couple minutes
That's
left,
good.
so I want to
All right.
like get to our final overall feelings and ratings on it.
Okay.
I'll go first. Again, I'm always about production and how
Yeah.
things sound. I think Kanye's delivery on the most part is fantastic throughout it. The one place where I feel so cold on it and I have no desire to hear it again is honestly it's Water.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah, that was-
Oh, and that was the one that he
Waters-
did at Coachella too.
Water's
I was like, why did you
production
break that one out?
Water's production is boring and his delivery
Oh.
is cold and lifeless, and I don't think the song overall is god awful. Just in the context of the rest of the album, it's the most lifeless and has the least interesting ideas or concept behind it. Even though I do appreciate Ant Clemens, or I think Ty Dolla $ign was on it.
Yep.
I like his vocals, but my favorite song is probably God Is, just because I can sing that song. That's what I enjoy about it. I could,
Yeah.
if it wasn't
I
a
could definitely
Kanye
get with
song
it.
and singing it carries with it
Yeah.
the whole it's a Kanye song thing behind it, I would sing it in church. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's a beautiful
Totally.
sounding worship
I would
song
sing
in
it
its
in church,
own right.
Yeah.
But Hands On is my favorite song for production's sake because those distorted background vocals add such a unique texture, and they're continued on Use This Gospel that has my favorite hook on the whole album. Use this gospel
Yeah,
for
that's awesome.
protection. I love
Awesome.
those two things. So for me, the problem with the album is entirely related to Kanye himself. It depends on what the future holds for him, what he turns into, and how it might devalue the moment this album was created in. Lyrically, there are obvious problems with his giant ego, and his egregious levels of pride. And his subpar rhyme schemes and silly bars, but aesthetically, musically, this album is exactly my taste. It as a vibe, that was the cheesiest thing I could have said. This album is fantastic, not perfect. It's not my exact kind of vibe that I'm searching for in an album, but I'd give this thing, after our discussion, I'd give this thing a strong 7.
Okay.
Because despite the problems that Kanye is, this album continues to sound beautiful, and it's short enough that I can listen to it through all the way around again and again and again, and it feels continually uplifting and powerful purely aesthetically.
Okay. All right. My final thoughts for this one is that there are different vantage points, of course, but some of them are that there was some cool stuff musically. I liked some of the big choirs. I liked that hook. I liked some of the transitions. I thought those were sweet. From an artistic standpoint, not much is going on lyrically. I mean, his rhymes are bad. There's not many profound lyrics that make you stop. Like the one lyric that I think is like gold standard is Talib's, where he says, just because you are character don't mean you have character. Like that stopped me in my tracks. Nothing stopped me in those tracks in this album. But
Chick-fil-A does, but in a bad way.
Oh, yeah, I wrecked my car on purpose. From a celeb culture standpoint, thinking again of the lyrics, they are impressive. They are impressive and somewhat shocking and surprising because there is a glint of truth, maybe even more than that, and there is truth, I think, declared because he uses biblical allusions properly for the most part and quotations. It's pretty cool how he does that. And I will say in my closing note that they faced a lot of the similar things in the early church, and in Philippians, Paul says, the former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice.
Nice.
And I think we can apply that pretty fairly.
Get in.
Yeah.
Whatever this is,
That was good.
Christ is in a lot of ways proclaimed.
Preach.
And that I'm going to rejoice in. And so I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 because I'm not going to be soft, even though he has some Christianese going on.
Yeah, that's good. That's better than I thought it was going to get.
That was good.
All right, old head.
Deep.
Tear it apart.
Okay, old head. The best lyric for me, everybody wanted Yandi, then Jesus Christ did the laundry. That was awesome. That was like
I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, so it was this album that people were like hyping and much anticipated, and it was sort of going to be like his Eastern mysticism album because he did the Blasphemous album, which was Jesus. And then they were thinking, maybe there's going to be like this mysticism Yandi, and then it was a Christian album instead. So Jesus Christ did the laundry
so funny.
and rhymed with Yandi. So anyhow, I thought that was awesome.
That's funny.
Yeah,
He's
that's a funny
I
one.
like when he's smart. He's really smart.
Yeah.
So 4 out of 10 for me. I liked 4 songs, and there were how many songs? 10?
There were 11.
10, maybe 11.
Yeah.
So,
So that's kind of how I'd chop it up.
The one thing that I forgot to mention that I'm always annoyed by, this song has so many interesting aesthetic musical ideas, but they don't finish almost any of them. Like, yeah, him just yelling Chick-fil-A.
Come on.
Other songs end on a dime. Every hour just ends. Jesus is Lord, the very last track. It doesn't even transition back around to form a full loop like it could. Very few of the songs actually end decisively. Selah ends decisively. Water does, but it's just because it's long.
It never starts.
Yeah,
There's a lot of water noises in that one.
Hands On and Use This Gospel do, but songs like Everything We Need and Follow God and Close on Sunday and On God all kind of just stop. They don't actually. It's the pandemic of modern trap music, which is we have a really cool idea for a hook and a bar. And we forgot how to finish it, so we're just gonna stop it at 2 minutes.
I think one more comment is the idea of association and similar celebrities, because if we take this guy and we start to follow him as the face of Christianity now, that will be bad.
That's bad news.
That
Yeah,
is
of course
bad news.
That's what he's made very, very specific cases for saying that I'm not trying to get people to follow me. I'm trying to get people to follow Jesus.
I just don't like how he does Sunday services, I guess. But
No.
I will say too that there is some good comparisons celebrity wise. I think of my man Manny Pacquiao and how he had his moment and he stayed true to it.
Yeah.
I think he
that's
has.
true.
So hopefully
That's cool.
this is the same thing.
It depends on the
Don't
future.
know.
Yeah.
But
We will
that's
see.
me.
Anyway, that was it. We got a split. You know how
was
to
a
get
bad rhyme.
with it. I'm only good at end rhymes. I'm not great at freestyling. I don't know. We'll just figure something out.
I
in the
just don't
future.
try.
We don't get. Anyway, thank y'all for listening. Please listen to the rest of the shows and episodes that we have. We don't know when we're going to come together. It's pretty much on an album by album basis. Whenever something drops that we like or don't like or just feel the need to discuss. And, the next time Eminem drops a single that just.
I won't be there for that one.
Anyway, thank y'all. Have a great day, and it's a wrap. It's a Wrap is a production of WJBC The Roar. Any opinions expressed are those of the individuals. If you'd like to find more, you can find us on iTunes and Spotify, or find us at wjbctheroar.podbean.com and email us at wjbcradio@bryan.edu. Music was provided by The Passion Hi-Fi. Visit them at thepassionhifi.com.